I'm Ken Harbaugh, host of Warriors in Their Own Words. In partnership with the Honor Project, we've brought this podcast back at a time when our nation needs these stories more than ever. Warriors in Their Own Words is our attempt to present an unvarnished, unsanitized truth of what we have asked of those who defend this nation. Thank you for listening, and by doing so, honoring those who have served. Today, we'll hear from Sergeant Josh Remillard, who served in the Army as a mortarman. Remillard deployed twice to Iraq in 2007 and 2010. During his first tour, he earned a combat infantryman's badge.
My name is Josh Remillard. The highest rank I got to was sergeant, and I served in the Army. And my first duty station, I served in the Army as an infantryman. In 2006, I went to my recruiter and I said, sign me up. I want to be in the infantry. So he set me up as 11 X-ray. I got to Fort Benning, and there I got assigned to 11 Charlie. So I was a mortarman. I served 8 years in the Army, and my first duty station was in Fort Stewart in Georgia. I did 5 years there, my initial enlistment. While there, I did 2 deployments, 2 combat tours to Iraq, one to Baghdad during the surge, and then one to Mosul. I can't remember the name of the operation, but we were there sort of helping the units as they were leaving. We were the backstop for units as they were leaving Iraq. I learned early that life is a fight. I grew up in the foster care system, and it wasn't until I was 4 that my grandparents were able to adopt me. After that, even the jobs I held were fights. I worked as a deckhand on a tugboat. I worked as a piercer in a tattoo shop, and then as a bouncer. And I guess I was sort of moping around town doing odd and end jobs, and I started paying attention to the news more, and I started noticing that the death toll was rising in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I remember hating myself. Like, what am I doing at home? Like, I'm just cheating the system. While these men or women are fighting overseas, I'm over here trying to get like a coupon for Hardee's to get like a cheaper hamburger or something, So, I had like an eighth of a tank of gas in my car, and I drove straight over to the recruiter and I said, look, man, I don't want you to sell me anything. I just want you to put me in the infantry. And if you can, put me in the fastest deploying unit out of basic. He couldn't guarantee me the fastest deploying unit, but he was like, yeah, we'll do that for you. So he signed me up for 11 X-ray, and then I went off to Benning and those combat tours. The 11 Charlie MOS is a brotherhood, and yeah, it is the stepchild to the 11 group. I remember in basic training after the shark attack. I don't remember what day it was, but it might have been actually during the shark attack day. They split us all up, and they just walked by and then pointed at you and said, you're 11 Charlie. And then those of us that were 11 Charlies were like, what does that even mean? And then, a few weeks later, we're in our bay, and our drill sergeant tells us what an 11 Charlie is. And you can just hear the bottom drop out in the entire bay. We're like, wait, hold on. We all thought we were going to be on the front lines, and now we're going to be launching stuff from like way behind. Like, come on, man, that's not fair. So I think that sort of in that mindset, once the 11 Bravos were separated from the 11 Charlies, we were always sort of determined to be better. It was sort of this little competition between us and the 11 Bravos to be better than the 11 Bravos. I think that was that sibling rivalry, if you will. You carry around the mortar tube, and they range from 60 millimeter mortars, which is something like it has like a little strap on it. You can carry it on your back, to like an 80 millimeter mortar, which someone, usually you assign someone that. If you're a light infantry unit, you assign someone that, and they carry that over their shoulders. And then, of course, you have your 120 millimeter mortar, which is something you have to put on the back of a trailer, because that's essentially the size of or the diameter of a tank barrel. And you have some pretty big rounds in that. You can't carry that on your person. So when I got out of basic, they sent me to 3rd ID, 3rd Infantry Division, 2nd Brigade Combat Team 37 Cav. And so I was in a Cav unit. And so we were in tracks. We were in the 113s. from back in Vietnam. Everyone else got, and this goes towards us being the stepchildren. Everyone else got upgraded vehicles. We still had Vietnam era vehicles, but the vehicle was, I guess you could say, retrofitted with the back hatch being able to open up and us to be able to elevate our 120 millimeter mortar. And there's a lot of math that goes into that. Like when you first set into place, you have to run your stakes out ahead of you, because that's going to be how you offset your sight, your mortar sight. And then, like your fisters, 13 Foxes will run out ahead of you, or they'll be somewhere way out ahead of you, excuse me. Or the infantry units or the scout units will be out ahead, and they'll call in for fire with a 13-digit grid. And then you have to plot that on your map or on your plotting board and determine what the elevation is that you're going to need, what kind of cheese charge, we call it, or a little explosive charge in the back of the round that you're going to need, so that way you can send rounds downrange. Then, of course, there was different kind of tactics you can use with firing mortars themselves. On our first deployment, we knew that we weren't going to fire mortars. So a lot of us were like, well, what the heck? What are we even doing here? We stopped off in Kuwait, and that's where we sort of acclimated and did a lot of our training. While there, my platoon was tasked with working as PSD, or personal security detachment, for a MIT team, a military in transition team. And the MIT teams, like, their job is, you have a collection of colonels, captains, sergeant majors, and so on that are essentially part of the S shops, and they work with their Iraqi army counterparts and helping them take over the battle space after we leave. So our job was to be their security detachment, and so we worked for a couple of months with special forces and Rangers on how to do tactical convoy ops, clearing rooms, doing foot patrols with HVTs, or VIPs, excuse me, not HVTs, but VIPs. And I'll tell you what, that was some absolutely incredible training that we had. Now, once we got into country, I remember I was the gunner on the Humvee, and obviously I was green. My driver was green. My squad leader had been to a couple of deployments before us, and it was nighttime. We're rolling out to, I think it was War Eagle, and we were all really tense rolling out the wire, and there's like this period of quiet, and then all of a sudden my squad leader goes boom in the mic, and scared the crap out of both my driver and myself. And he goes, "Okay, now your cherry's been busted. Now let's get back to work." I was like, so that's fun. But I think it was good. It got you over that initial nervousness. During that deployment, my platoon didn't stay with the unit. My platoon went all over Baghdad. We were in the old Ministry of Defense building. We were just south of the Army base Rustamiyah. There was a 9th Iraqi Army Division there, and we stayed there. And then we ended up towards the end of the last few months of the deployment, we stayed in an Iraqi police compound. So we bounced. I mean, we went all over. We went through Sadr City. We went all over the place. I'll tell you what, I really appreciated working with the Iraqi Army, the 9th Iraqi Army Division. I mean, those guys, they were squared away, and they were really determined to do a good job. So it was definitely a pleasure working with them. The Iraqi police, a lot of us were concerned working alongside them because a lot of them had been bought off by al-Sadr and his insurgents. And so they were given free passage to other militants and so on. And so we never knew what was going to happen, if we were working with them. And as a matter of fact, whenever we did convoys with them, we interspersed them in our convoy. So it was like an American vehicle, then an Iraqi vehicle, and an American vehicle, and so on. So that way we knew that we had convoy security and integrity. There was an Iraqi police officer that I worked with during the last place that I was at, and we called him Smiley because he didn't really have any teeth. But he was a good guy. I mean, we had these Army translation books, and the translation book would say a little bit, would teach you how to speak Arabic, and all that stuff. So I would go out to my guard shift with him, and I'd try to speak Arabic, and then I would teach him English. We'd go back and forth. I even bought him like a Michael Jackson CD because he was a huge fan of Michael Jackson. And, after a while, you start to understand, as you're talking with them, you start to understand their thinking and why they believe certain forces, so I guess why they believe that the American forces sometimes weren't good or so on, because they would see the constant changing of the guard, and they'd get a really good unit, then they'd get a really bad unit, then they'd get and so there was just never this consistency with them. So they just never knew who they could trust. And so they were just like, I might as well, I mean, if 3-7 Cav's not going to be here, I might as well trust Al Sadr when he threatens me and my family to go do bad stuff, But I think overall, when I was working with him, I had a lot of confidence in the guys that I worked with. But I think it also came from the fact that I took the effort, I took the time to learn the language, to respect them, and in turn, they respected me. We were rolling with the MIT team. I don't remember which base we were rolling to, and we came over the bridge through the intersection, and I was the lead truck. I was the lead truck gunner, and the car off to the right of me, about 50 meters or so, blew up. And I'll tell you what, seeing that explosion, like I remember trying to like capture that experience afterwards, because you see that quick flash of red, black smoke, you feel that instant heat, and then like, immediately you get the sense of like, oh crap, I got to protect myself. But then your training sort of kicks in. You get that momentary pause. Then your training kicks in, and I start scanning the area around me, and I tell my driver, I was like, blow through the kill zone, man. Get through it. So we blast through the kill zone. We drive through the kill zone, and I'm pulling security. We're trying, we're getting our green to green inside the truck, making sure everything's clear. And then I found out later on, once everyone else was good, there was no damage, we were all green to green, we all rolled to our base, because the guy that had blown up the car was in the car, and he sort of like melted out of the driver's seat. We get to our base, and I find out once we're there that the Iraqis that we were rolling with they executed what's called like a death blossom, and they all had Dishkas, or the Russian 50 cals, on their trucks, and they were all pointing in different directions. And they just opened up on everyone in the intersection. I mean, they shot and killed pretty much everyone that was there, and I was just like, that's insane. I still, even after being blown up, I still had to get PID, positive identification of the assailant. But these guys just opened up and killed everybody, and I was just like, that's insane. There were several other times we had mortars walked in on us, and I think towards the end of the deployment, we had sort of become so desensitized by it. We went into the green zone, waiting on our colonel to do a meeting, and we're in the parking lot of the PX, and mortar rounds start just walking in along the PX, and we see everyone else start scattering for the mortar bunkers, and we're just sitting by the trucks going, no, that's not close enough, we're good. And I remember when I got home, I was like, when we redeployed back stateside, I was like, man, that was really stupid. That was really stupid of us. Oh man, yeah. So there was some interesting times. I mean, if you were in some units that experienced a lot of fighting, or if you were in like a base where you had a lot of tall buildings around you and you're experiencing sniper shots all the time, like it starts to wear on you. And yeah, I mean, there was some pretty mean things that soldiers would do, I think, just because of that extra stress of, you never know when the next bullet is going to come for you, And then, on my second deployment, we were in Mosul, and we were up in, I think it was like Diamondback and Merez. I think those were the two bases. And at the time for that deployment, I ended up becoming the de facto platoon sergeant for the mortars. I was just a sergeant, but then my platoon sergeant and the other, my staff sergeant ended up getting sent to other units. So I became the de facto platoon sergeant. So I had 2 mortar tracks, 8 soldiers to be in charge of. And, once we got there, we placed our mortar tracks in a certain spot, somewhere further on down the base. And initially all we were doing was shooting up illumination rounds at night, I guess to have a show of force, if you will. One day I get called into my commander's office, and I'm in there along with his scout platoon leaders, and the scout platoon leader is updating him on the past 2 weeks that they were out observing this island, I think it was. And, the company commander looks at me and says, all right, Remy, I want you to go and get your mortar team ready. We're going to drop some HE on that island. And, I remember looking at him, and there was a moment there where I felt scared, because I was like, well, I just heard him say, because when the LT said, when he was debriefing them, he was saying, look, there's nothing happening over there. There's like old people walking goats. There's like kids playing soccer. There's nothing going on. So when the commander said to me, let's go drop HE rounds, I just remember just this internal panic. I couldn't believe what I was hearing, and I couldn't believe what I was told to do. And I knew that I'm supposed to go do it, but there was just something itching the back of my brain, and I was like, I can't do that. So, I'm talking to the captain, and I was like, sir, are we part of the same conversation? And he's like, yeah. He's like, we're going to go, it's a show of force. We're going to drop HE on it, whatever the case was. And I looked at him and I said, sir, I can't do that. And he got it was like a momentary pause, and he and the LT are looking at me, and he's like, Remillard, that's an order. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, he just said that there's no one over there. Like, there's kids over there. I was like, I can't do that. Then he got really angry at me. And next thing I know, I have, first sergeant, I got all these LTs and, coming into the office, and they're all yelling at me. And my commander is telling me, he's like, look, if you don't do this, you can go to Leavenworth. You can lose your rank. You can lose your pay. You can get kicked out of the Army, dishonorably discharged. And I was like, look, bottom line, sir, I mean, I could do this all day. I just can't do that. I can't do it. So he was really angry, and he sent me back to my barracks. And, I told my other guy that I was bunking with what had happened. And he was trying to convince me too. He was like, Remy, he's like, just do it, man. He's like, you're just doing what you're told. It's not a big deal. And I was like, yeah, I know that, man. But because I know what's over there, because I know, what the scout leader told me, I can't be a part of that. I can't have that blood on my hands. I can't go home and have that blood on my hands. And so I told my guys that we're not going to do it. So I had to keep going back and forth to the commander's office every day, because he would go up the chain and he would talk to another person. Our squadron commander, battalion commander, division, even all the way up to like General Odierno at the time. And at least that's what he told me. And, every time I would come back, he'd say, all right, they said that we're going to do it. You're going to do it. And I was just like, I can't do it. I'm not doing it. And then finally, when it got up to, as he said, General Odierno, and it came back down, I guess General Odierno said, don't worry about it. We can scrap the mission. We don't need it. And so after that point, my company commander was like, all right, Remillard, well, you're lucky. You don't have to do this. Odierno says we don't have to. And throughout the rest of the unit, I think for a while I was considered kind of a pariah almost, because I didn't do what the company commander wanted. So, I got put on odd details here and there, but I was like, look, I'm fine with that. I can go home at night knowing that I didn't kill innocent people. So, So yeah, I definitely see how being out there on mission over and over again with the threat of death constantly looming over you can drive some people to do some pretty nasty things, but I never wanted to be that kind of soldier. I wanted to do something honorable while I was in the military. I ended up telling my guys, because it was sort of the buzz around the troop that I had said no. I told the team leads, the squad leaders, that we weren't going to do it. And once the buzz came back to me, I think at some point I probably even brought my guys into a room, all my guys into a room. And it was weird before I did that. Like, I remember sitting in my room thinking to myself, like, what am I doing? Like, this is crazy that I'm in this position. And I guess I fully took it on, and I was like, I told them that, yeah, I'm going to say no every time. I'm not going to send us out there to go shoot HE rounds, because a leader has to take responsibility for their actions. That's what the Army tells you. You can always delegate tasks, but you can never delegate responsibility. So the blood was always going to be on my hands. But I also didn't want my guys to participate in something like that. Having the intel that we had, having the PID, having the positive identification, I didn't want my guys to have to live with that. I didn't want them to have to be a part of that. And I didn't get much pushback from my guys. I told them, I was like, go ahead, talk freely, let me know what you guys think. Ultimately, I didn't want them to be a part of it. And I think that I didn't receive a whole lot of pushback either from it. When I got out of the Army, there was some dark times. There was some dark times for me, because I didn't I didn't have a mission. I didn't have a purpose, but I had all this PTSD. What do I do? And then that's when I found Team Rubicon. And I saw what they were all about, veterans, helping veterans respond to natural disasters. I think the slogan is kicking natural disasters in the face or something like that. And they gave me a mission. They gave me a mission to continue helping out my community and my country. And I'll tell you what, I got my wildland firefighter certification with them. I got my damage assessment certification from them. And when I went down to Florida after Hurricane Michael to help down there, after the missions are up, they raise the beer flag. Everyone's back on post to raise the beer flag. We all grab a couple of beers and we sort of sit around the fire and we chat. And nothing is more cathartic than being able to be there for other veterans who have experienced some hard, experiences, and just being that person that they can lean on because they know that you understand it.
With the busy fall season just around the corner, you might be looking for wholesome, convenient meals for jam-packed days. Factor, America's #1 ready-to-eat meal kit, can help you fuel up fast with chef-prepared, dietitian-approved, ready-to-eat meals delivered straight to your door. You'll save time, eat well, and stay on track with your healthy lifestyle. Too busy with your end-of-summer goals to cook but want to make sure you're eating well? With Factor, skip the extra trip to the grocery store and the chopping, prepping, and cleaning up too, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never-frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy, then get back to crushing your goals. Level up with Gourmet Plus options prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in record time. Treat yourself to upscale meals with premium ingredients like broccolini, leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. With Factor, you can rest assured you're making a sustainable choice. We offset 100% of our delivery emissions, source 100% renewable electricity for our production sites and offices, and feature sustainably sourced seafood in our meals. This August, get Factor and enjoy eating well without the hassle. Simply choose your meals and enjoy fresh, flavor-packed meals delivered to your door, ready in just 2 minutes, no prep, no mess. Head to factormeals.com/warriors50 and use code warriors50 to get 50% off. That's code warriors50 at factormeals.com/warriors50 to get 50% off.
History is complicated. The story of human progress is long, messy, and riddled with controversies big and small. On Conflicted, we dive headfirst into history's most infamous events and contentious figures. We try and untangle the good from the bad, the fact from the fiction, and the monsters from the misunderstood. Was Genghis Khan a murderous butcher or a civic pioneer? Did the Allied powers go too far in firebombing the German city of Dresden at the twilight of World War II? And how did the Marquis de Sade acquire such a sinister reputation? And was any of it true? These are just a few of the tough questions we wrestle with and investigate on Conflicted. So if you love history or just enjoy a good story, please join me, your host, Zach Cornwell, for a fascinating new topic each and every month. Conflicted, a history podcast, is available on Spotify, Apple, or wherever else you get your podcasts. I hope to see you soon.
If I hear an explosion or, some sort of pop or, 4th of July, like I still twitch a little bit. And, whenever I'm driving down the road, if I see a sewer lid, I try to split the car. I try to put it in the middle of the car as I'm driving over it, because the insurgents would put pressure plates underneath sewer lids, and they would put 500-pound bombs underneath those sewer lids. And then so if a vehicle goes over it, you end up losing your entire crew. And then, there was a period of time too, whenever I would drive under overpasses, like I sort of start on one side of the overpass and then go to the other side, because again, insurgents would stand on bridges and then they would drop armor-piercing grenades from the top of those bridges down onto the gunners. And then, of course, one of the last things that we had heard about is that on our first deployment, what the insurgents were doing is they were taking the big, tall T barriers, and they were putting like heat sensors or what have you in on one, and then they were attaching it to an IED, like an EFP on the ground somewhere else, for the purpose of killing the gunners. And so there's sort of that, I guess, weariness. And also, like, I mean, whenever I go into like restaurants and stuff, I always try to put my back against the wall so I can see who's coming in. I have, I guess you could say, a little bit of PTSD from all that still to this day. But I mean, I certainly didn't get the worst of it like other guys did. One of the things I always try to tell veterans is like, look, I know it's scary to talk about, but the more that you talk about it, the less of a mystery it becomes. The more normalized it becomes, your experiences, the more normalized it becomes. Even if no one understands what you've gone through, the more that you talk about it, it doesn't have that effect on you as it used to. You know, I'm always trying to encourage people to talk about it as much as they can, as much as they're comfortable doing it, because getting through that, it will make your life a whole lot easier as you're dealing with it. I think maybe from all the movies that we see where there's this fetishization of people always being the lone guy defending democracy, defending our country or whatever, standing on the hill triumphant. You know, a lot of these people like Madison Cawthorn, they sort of view themselves as that guy, and they nothing's more exciting for them. But then they don't understand the reality that comes with killing another human being. People who cosplay, you know, attacking our government, engaging in a second civil war, I find it disgusting, and I find it very detached, because clearly I imagine that most of these people have never had to put another human being at the end of their gun sights, their knife sights. They've never had to pull a trigger on another person. It's not easy. It's not easy. You know, I was really excited to join the military because I felt like it was my job and I wanted to be in the fight. I knew what the infantry was all about, well, at least generally before I got in. But before my first deployment, knowing what I was probably going to have to do, you know, I spent a good month, maybe two, any moment that I had by myself, talking to myself and getting myself in the headspace, understanding that, you know, trying to picture what it would look like to have to put another person in my knife sight and then pull the trigger on that human being. Because the reality is that when you pull that trigger, when you fire that round into another human being, you're not prepared for what's going to happen. I had heard reports that day that people were trying to break into the Capitol with the express intent of finding Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence and then hanging them outside. Like, that's just, sure, you know, I guess like in the back rooms when you're talking it up with your buds, like it sounds like a really cool romantic idea of saving your democracy, stopping the steal. But then just realize that you're taking another human life and you're going to pull the trigger on it. You're going to hit that person with a baseball bat. You're going to string them up by a noose. That's not, you know, when I was over there, there was one time I was doing a foot patrol through a neighborhood, and this lady brought her kid out to us. And she spoke to us because the kid needed some medical aid or something like that. And our medic gave her that aid. And later on, we found out that al-Sadr had this sort of kill order out, that if anyone came out and interacted with the Americans, they were dead. They were going to kill them. That was just unbelievable to me. It was just unbelievable to me. And then, you know, again, you know, I had another experience where I was helping out a convoy, and it was a bunch of trucks bringing T barriers to help wall off a neighborhood or something like that. And the truck was trying to make its way into a tight turn, and I was the one exposed, protecting its backside on the highway, and I see a car barreling down on us. I went through the SOP, the ROE, the rules of engagement. You know, we're supposed to shove, shout, show, and shoot. That's what we're supposed to do before we ever pull the trigger on anybody. And so I see him coming down the road, and I'm waving at him. And so I'm showing him. And, you know, I put my finger on the trigger. I lean into the buttstock. I take the rounds out. I charge it. I lay it down. I charge the weapon. And I'm leaning into it. And I'm still yelling at this guy. And I'm getting ready to pull the trigger. And then probably 100 meters from me, he slams on the brakes, comes to a skid. And I look inside, and it's his pregnant wife and his kid in the back of the car. And I remember just being so pissed at the fact that I was about to kill this man and his entire family, that the way to release it was for me to throw a bottle at his car. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, why did it take you so long to stop? I didn't want to have to kill you, but I was going to. That was going to be the next step. I guess what I'm saying is, like, sure, I suppose civil war might be romantic to some people because you're going to be in this fight against an enemy, a perceived enemy, but killing other human beings isn't fun. It's not romantic. It's not like the movies.
That was Sergeant Josh Remillard. To learn more about Josh, listen to his interview on Burn the Boats. The link is in the show description. Thanks for listening to Warriors in Their Own Words. If you have any feedback, please email the team at kharbaugh@evergreenpodcasts.com. We're always looking to improve the show. For updates and more, follow us on Twitter at @team_Harbaugh. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review. Warriors in Their Own Words is a production of Evergreen Podcasts in partnership with the Honor Project. Our producer is Declan Roars. Bridget Coyne is our production director, and Sean Rule-Hoffman is our audio engineer. Special thanks to Evergreen executive producers Joan Andrews, Michael DeAloia, and David Moss. I'm Ken Harbaugh, and this is Warriors in Their Own Words.
Greetings from Evergreen Podcasts. We're rolling out a listener survey, and we want to hear from you. The information in the survey will help us gather statistics and in turn make our shows more appealing to advertisers. I know most people don't like ads, but this is one of the only ways our shows make money and help keep their lights on. We promise it will only take a few minutes, but the impact on our podcasts will be tremendous. As a token of our appreciation, we'll randomly select one lucky participant each month to win an exclusive merchandise package from Evergreen Podcasts. Head to evergreenpodcast.com/listenersurvey to help a show and possibly get some free stuff for doing so. We can't thank you enough for the support. Now back to the show.